First up, Brian Campbell, Justin Gaethje wins in the main event at UFC Vancouver on ESPN+. It not only was a nice victory, it not only was his third victory in a row, it was his third victory in a row via first-round stoppage. He has now defeated, Brian, let's see, James Vick, first-round stoppage, Edson Barboza, first-round stoppage, and Cowboy Cerrone, first-round stoppage. Now, if you want it to be an a-hole, and I'm not saying you do, I'm using the, hold on now, I'm using the proverbial you.
Do I give those vibes off just now?
No. I'm merely introducing as a way to frame the argument. There are always going to be people that no matter how many wins you get, they say, yeah, but Cowboys up and down, Edson's on the downside, and James Vick already left the division. What does that really mean? So the question would be, how good is Justin Gaethje? Now, for folks who are maybe new to this, I do a second segment just by myself called Dissected, where I look at some film, some multimedia evidence to see what we can glean from that. And I do think having some managed expectations about this are important. Yes, James Vick is talented, but he did lead the division. Edson Barboza is probably not in his prime. And certainly Cowboy Cerrone is an incredible competitor, but he's always a little bit up and down at times. However, it's not fair to say anything other than Justin Gaethje, while not reborn, is certainly reformed. To me, he is absolutely a top 5 talent, if not higher. And here's really the key to the whole situation. I'd love to get your perspective because I showed a bunch of stuff, but as just a general way to understand what's happened, Justin Gaethje is still very much Justin Gaethje, which is to say, does he throw leg kicks? Yes. Does he throw great punches in the dirty boxing clinch? Yes. Does he still have a hammer of a left hook? Yes. Does he throw, not with reckless abandon, but like with consistent offense? Absolutely.
Does he still try to eat men's souls? Absolutely.
All the things that makes him good and all the weapons that he likes, they're still there. But everything else around it, from the footwork to the entries to the exits, dude, he's cleaned up so much of that. It's turned him into something of a sniper of sorts. His timing he shows, like how are you able to beat Barboza and Vick and Cerrone with these kill shots? Because his timing is impeccable. Everyone's like, oh, his power's great. Yes, of course it is. But it's aided by ridiculous timing. Dude, he is a force to be reckoned with. The World Series of Fighting Gaethje is no more, Brian Campbell.
I think you're right. And Professor Salt and Pepper, I'll be your Spinderella to break this down. But when we thought Gaethje, when he hit that crossroads and we said it's time for a change, what that crossroads was consecutive knockouts where are you going to be a true elite contender in this game? Or are you going to be MMA's version of Arturo Gatti, which is fine. You can be a TV fighter. You can go out there and walk into oncoming traffic and sort of sell your fighting soul to a degree because that's just how you get down. I think for me personally, knowing his wrestling background, I always thought his evolution or just to change himself to salvage his career was going to come through abstinence from banging. It was going to come from wrestling and mixing it up. Instead, you know what he's doing? He's taking what he does best and he's just ironing it out just a little bit. We've all had those girlfriends in college. You can't domesticate them. You want to bring them home to mom. You can't because they're here to bang. And this is ultimately what Gaethje did, only he says, I'm going to go into that cage. I'm still going to be promiscuous, but I'm going to wear protection, and I'm going to set up my shots better, and I'm going to be a little bit more crafty. Still the animal, still has power, and you asked me off the top before you went on a somewhat long-winded 5-minute start to the show, but I'm sure the viewers enjoyed it.
They did.
You said, what is he now? He's a legitimate title contender now.
Yeah.
I don't care where those guys went after he knocked him out. Each of those 3 fights were important for him to sort of declare, who are you, Justin Gaethje? You know what he is? He's a smart and powerful legitimate title contender in the deepest division in the sport. Who do I want to see him against? Everybody.
You would have thought what a guy like that, like anybody who comes into the game can get better, right? Change teams or just refocus, or there's always ways to improve. But you would have thought a guy who had a style like that, that's his identity. Like there's only one way to fight. Maybe you can give him a bit of a different weapons to your point, throw in a little wrestling there, mix it up, maybe give him some good ground and pound, but that wild brawling, that just off balance swinging, well, that's really who he is. And it turns out it's actually really not who he is. What he is a guy, yes, he likes to throw hammers, and of course he's landing them, but he can be so much more. Like he's light on his feet, he's careful, he's at times considerate, of his own offense and his own strategies. It just felt like the way, if you see somebody who's a brawler, you just feel like, oh, they're a brawler for life. That's who they are. Because most brawlers, that's them reaching their peak. It just turned out he was a very good, maybe actually quite out elite fighter who was fighting well below his potential just in a way that was really exciting. He actually made a point as well on the ESPN post-fight show saying, I'd be done with these other fights, even the ones I won, I'd just be exhausted. He's not tired at all. Yes, they're going, not far past the first round, but just that style. It's not so labor intensive. We'll see what that means for the second and third round, if anyone can ever get him there, which leads us to the next question, Brian Campbell. Okay, he's looked great, but who would be next? Would it be a Conor McGregor? Would it be a Dustin Poirier? Would it be the winner of Tony versus Khabib? Now, Conor, as he is wont to do, after all these events, gets out there on social media, and MMA sites desperate for traffic will then take those tweets.
Hey, some of us work for those MMA sites.
I get it. They got bills to pay. I'm not above it. Turn it into traffic. That's what it is. Turn it into traffic, and it magnifies the whole thing. So we don't know if Tony's going to fight Khabib, but it seems possible at least within 2019, maybe early first quarter 2020. Dustin Poirier coming off that loss, he's out in the open. Conor's kind of out in the open as well. Those two could get matched up. He's tweeting out here, Dublin, December. Ooh. Of course, I think it's December 14th. That show's supposed to be at T-Mobile. And here's the thing, Brian, I'll pitch this to you. Can they do a show in Dublin? Should they do a show between Gaethje and Conor? Given that they already pulled one show from T-Mobile, they have to give them a certain number each year following Jones-Gus. What do you think?
I'm not sure about the internal details of a MGM Grand T-Mobile deal in terms of filling dates, but they moved the John Jones show in such unprecedented fashion in Christmas week on 6 days' notice from Vegas to L.A. If you're going to put Conor McGregor in the main event, he wants to go to Dublin, and you can pretty much make comparable money and make this an event, I think you do that. I wouldn't want to see Gaethje against anyone coming off a loss except for Conor McGregor, because we know that's a Super Bowl, that's the equivalent of a title opportunity. And right now, he is a title contender legitimately, but that line is long at the top. Tony Ferguson at the head of that. We know this is an all-killer division. I don't want to see him against Poirier now because Poirier just come off a loss. It's time for Gaethje to trend upwards, and Conor's the only step back that's still a forward step because of his name, and that fight screams so much chaos, so much violence, so much drama. It's so damn intriguing. Gaethje's almost too good, though. If you're UFC, if you're the UFC financial power brokers that be, and you're sitting in that war room that we talk about that Dana has, and you got all the names on the wall, and you're mapping out the territory, and you go, we want to take the chance that Gaethje takes Conor's soul? I mean, when we can put Conor in there with other names coming off of a loss, the Frankie Edgars, the Jose Aldos, that will refreshen him and prop him back up. It's very interesting. If they go in that direction, it's going to do business.
At 155?
And it's going to deliver. Yeah.
So you would do Aldo or Edgar against McGregor at 155?
Or Cowboy before this fight, essentially.
That's interesting. Well, I don't know what they're going to do because you have Poirier out there tweeting Santa emojis when asked if he was going to be fighting in December. Does that mean he's fighting Conor? Does it mean Gaethje's fighting Conor? I'll tell you this: you can't go wrong with either bout. You can't go wrong with either bout. Here's what Conor is essentially up against, insofar as I can tell. Let's say he fights Gaethje. First of all, Gaethje has all of a sudden turned into just a magnificent talent. I mean, he already kind of was by virtue of a weird, exhausting style. Now he is by virtue of execution. So you've got him. You know he's unafraid. Under those lights, he's just like Conor. He comes to life in that scenario.
Only he's not coming with his hands down anymore, so it's such a different ballgame.
Right, certainly is. But you'd have the most violent man in MMA, which, by the way, Eddie Alvarez even agreed. I don't think he called him most violent. I think he called him most entertaining, but they're essentially synonymous.
Most sadistic is where I'll go with on that one.
Fair enough. So you've got that versus MMA's most popular man. Like, that is just a thing that sells itself. On the other hand, with Poirier, there's history there. You could sell the rematch. There's two guys coming off of losses, technically. The question, though, is how much has Poirier changed since their first fight? I would say a lot. Like, the benefit is, okay, you already beat that guy, but the downside is that guy's real different now, and I think actually poses a much greater threat than he did the first time. If the choice is only Gaethje, or the choice is Gaethje or Poirier, which way is Conor going to go? Those are your only two. Aldo, Edgar out the window. Which way is it going to go?
Is Poirier an easier fight under these circumstances right now? And that's crazy to say.
Easier than he used to be, or easier than Gaethje?
Easier than Gaethje right now, who I don't know how Conor looks at him. I don't know if Conor sees or appreciates the same advancements to his game that we're seeing. And if he just sees him as a husk that he can chip away at and be the perfect foil for him, then Conor's going to have the confidence against anybody. But I don't know. Both are tough fights. I mean, you're really splitting hairs on which one is easier, which one's better. They're both going to draw. They're both going to move. I just want to have Conor in a fight. Like, come on. I'm sick of playing this game. I was sick of playing that game for 2 years through the Floyd fight of who's he going to fight, when he's going to fight. He moves everything. He makes us care. Get in there and fight, okay?
Yeah, the good news is it doesn't matter which way he goes. It's going to be great for us.
Just announce it.
And by the way, if he does go with Poirier, I want you to consider something. Everyone talks about Gaethje being like the Khabib killer. I don't know if he is or if he's not. What I would say is, you ask him if you could pick any permutation, most people are going to say Tony versus Khabib, and I would too. Second to that, I'm going to say Ferguson versus Gaethje.
Oh, I thought you were going to go hipster and go Gregor Gillespie.
No,
a lot of people like him.
Yeah, he's great. But there's some there's some validating that needs
Well,
to
look,
happen
you're
first.
matching two kinds of souls together in Justin and Habib that you just don't see in this game. You know, mental toughness.
Tony as
and-
well. Tony as well. Very quickly, where does Cowboy Cerrone go from here? My sense of the whole thing is the guy's been a chameleon his whole career. He is a quarterback who throws an interception and then gets right back on the field and marches him down for a touchdown. He has good forgetfulness in that particular sense. He can go to 2 different weight classes, which allows him to reinvent himself and get a fresh set of opponents. The answer is I'm not really sure, but maybe taking some time off is probably in his interest, although he probably won't.
He doesn't take time off.
I get
That's
it.
not
I
his
understand.
deal, all right?
I'm just saying I don't know what the answer is exactly,
It's
but I'm
fairly
never
easy.
too worried about him.
It's fairly easy. He goes back to being a celebrity fighter, which is kind of what he is his whole career. And I don't want to be the hater who doesn't respect fighters here, because I love me some Cowboy. And Luke, his long-term legend is going to be his legacy, an all-timer with a combination of one of the most beloved fighters because he's so damn real, and sort of this longevity where he fights every 3 months on the dot. It gives him the ability to say, I have the most wins and most appearances in UFC history. But it actually has been rare in his career where he's put the formula together and come up for air and tried to be a legitimate title contender.
Right.
We just saw, I think, the last stand of that, being Cowboy Dad kind of, regenerated him. He looked great. He got as far as he couldn't get past Tony Ferguson. I think he's just going to go fighting whoever they put in front of him every 3 months. Why? Because the dude likes to cash checks and buy power tools and jet skis. And that's just who he is.
Yeah.
In long term, he's a bit of a compiler all time. His legend will get more than his ability might actually deserve because of how beloved he is and because of all these numbers. But he's one of those guys who ends up playing 25 years in Major League Baseball and gets to 3,000 hits. But you look at him and go, never really an MVP candidate, just to sell it out.
To your point, though, that could be a function of how he has managed the way in which he has accepted fights on the particular. I mean, the Ferguson fight was on short notice. Like you took fight Tony freaking Ferguson. On
He's
short
Craig
notice.
Biggio. That's where I'm going with this. All right.
Fair enough. I think I would just say I wouldn't worry too much about it. He's got such an ability to get a fight quickly, to readapt. All you need is another win in your back pocket, and all of a sudden you're back. I'm just going to say this. I'm glad that the Cerrone dad thing has now been shown to be nothing but a nothing media narrative, which is to say, of course, your kids can provide great focus for you, and they can push you to great heights. But on some level, you are the fighter you are, irrespective of what kind of.
Says the guy who just had a child and his career's taken off, but that's fine. All right.
You know what?
I don't
Maybe
judge.
they are good luck in that way. Where I should. I just don't. These media narratives. I don't buy them. But Cerrone will rebound quickly, I'm sure.